Hawk is on the line with us this morning from Bradenton, Florida, where the Pirates play some spring training baseball. And Bob has been going to Bradenton for a number of years. Bob, I was on my run yesterday, and I was listening to Loud Outs, and they were talking about the Red Sox and their sorry pitching situation right now. But they were speaking a whole different language, because the Red Sox are one of those teams that can pay $25 million a year to a pitcher. The Pirates are not in that boat, and so it got me to wondering, when the Pirates have so many young arms coming up through the minor leagues and finally starting to show their faces around MLB camp, and you get to see these guys coming. It got me thinking back to when you were the veteran pitcher watching young guys come into the Pirate clubhouse and saying, man, look how fast that guy can throw. I wonder if he can pitch. and I'm sure that there were a number of those guys with those Pirates, especially in the mid-'90s. Guys like when Paul Wagner came up, he had tremendous stuff and could throw the ball 1,000 miles an hour. It took him a while to learn how to pitch, though, and that's the way it is. Do you remember those days and those guys?
Oh, yeah. I thought, you remember Steve Cook, the lefty?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was another guy that was coming up right there when I was about to leave. That was real good. There was another guy, I can't remember his first name. Last name was White. Wasn't really a hard thrower, but was a pretty good pitcher at the time. And and then of course the year before that, we had Wakefield come up and do such a good job. Now he wasn't a hard thrower, but still, he was. You could see that he had a chance to be a top of the rotation guy just from the way he had pitched in the short time with us and in the playoffs. But he ended up really scuffling with his control and stuff, and he ended up having to go to that team you just mentioned, and where he finally got everything ironed out, and he became one of the best. But that's kind of where we're at. You have to have these young guys coming up, and I think over the last handful of seasons, they've really concentrated on getting quality, talented young guys in the draft and bringing them in. And you're seeing some of them. Jared Jones, who pitched for us yesterday, wow! I've heard about this guy, and yesterday was the first day I got to see him, and man, he's good.
He's composed, isn't he?
He can throw, man, and he's about the size of Drabek.
Yeah,
You see him out there, you can kind of think about what Doug looked like, but this kid can really bring. I mean, he can throw as hard as Skeens does.
Wow!
So it's going to be interesting. A lot of young guys coming up, and the reinforcements could definitely arrive here the second half of the season, and usually that's when you really need them too. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very positive right now. I know that on paper starting rotation is thin. I'm not going to argue that, but it might not be as bad as we make it out to be.
Well, I said to Greg last week when we were talking about the Pirates pitching staff, I said, let's look at the Pirates pitching staff a year or 2 years from now, and a guy like Quinn Priester might not even have a place on the team, because you've got Skeens, you've got Bubba Chandler, you've got Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, of course, will still be here, and up and down that rotation, they're stocked with arms. But those arms don't always last, and it's like the Red Sox. They'll be paying $36 million to two guys that won't throw a single pitch for them this year.
There's going to be pitchers that are going to be paid over $40 million this year. I mean, pitching is incredibly expensive. The top of the line pitching, incredibly expensive. See, if you can grow your own and keep those guys around for 6 years, that's a great boost to any organization. So I like the plan. Sometimes plans don't work out. Last year at this time, I mean, how we were really talking up Contreras and Ortiz. Talking about Ortiz throwing 100 miles an hour, and thinking back how he this was destroying people in his short time, and talking about that game he had against the Yankees. So things don't always pan out exactly the way you would want them to. And that's why you have to have more than like one or two prospects. You know, you have to have a bunch of them because some of them aren't going to make it. They're going to fail for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have a group of names, 4 or 5 you can throw out there, again, that's a big plus.
Yeah, you got to the end of the season last year, and like I said to you the other day, they were asking you to pitch, and
it was the cupboard was bare the last 2 months of the season last year.
Yeah,
and then that showed you how good that bullpen was last season because they played over 500 when they basically had 0 starting pitching other than Keller.
Yeah, it was a tremendous job, I thought, by the coaching staff and Oscar Marine as a pitching coach. Ray Miller and guys like that, they're rarities, but it seems like the Pirates have the guy in Oscar Marine that they need to lead those guys.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of a good mix because he's a guy that understands and buys in on all the modern ways. Have a starter go 4 innings and then use the bullpen. I mean, he kind of believes in that type, and at the same time, he also knows that there are times where you got an old school guy, and you just got to treat him a little differently. And I think Keller was like that. Keller was throwing 6 or 7 innings last year in some situations when there's no way they'd let anybody else do that.
Yeah.
And so I think he's got a good handle on who you got to allow. I mean, who should go out there and pitch like this was 1990, and who should you go out there and once they get through that lineup one time, get them out of there and start going to the bullpen. Now, if you have if you're the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Boston team, you're spending all this money on pitching, you might have a 5-man rotation with a bunch of horses, and you don't have to do that. But in our situation, you got to be good with the bullpen, and that's why they're trying to get the bullpen as deep as it is. With the off-season acquisition of Chapman, and then now Bednar's on the shelf. So, and that's another thing. We got to stay away from injuries. I mean, I don't know how to do that, but I wish I did. We need to not lose guys during the season especially like we did last year. That really hurt us.
Paul Skeens, of course, was told yesterday you're going to start the season in the minors, but we're going to have you hang around the clubhouse here for a while, keep up with big league camp. And I know fans will be very impatient because they think, well, they remember back probably to the Steven Strasburg debut in Washington and think, we got a guy like that, and he should be up here. But the guy's only, as Derek Shelton said yesterday, he's only thrown less than 7 innings of pro baseball. So we have to be patient with Paul Skeens, don't we?
Well, the main thing is, if you can't sign him to a long-term contract, you want him for 6 seasons or 6.5.
Yeah.
You want him for 6.5. So by making it to where he can't leave for free agency, after, if you start him right here at the beginning this season, then after 6 seasons, he's gone if you can't sign him. So now you're going to get him for 1 extra year at the very end. You'll have him for really a 7th season if you bring him up in the middle of this year. So, I mean, that is as important as a lot of other things, but people don't really like to talk about that. That's why they're doing this or that's because, I don't know, it's just not popular, but it's smart to do something like that. Now, if we were, if this was the early 90s and we're on the cusp of going to the World Series, you bite the bullet maybe, and if this guy is awesome, well, then you want him right now.
Yeah.
But I think everybody will admit we're not on the cusp of being a great team. Now maybe we will, but I think there's some more. We got to prove some stuff before you start thinking like that.
Yeah, push that down the road just a little bit. Hey, baseball at the plate for Henry Davis this year. It's been pretty special so far in spring training, with the caveat that it's only spring training, but Davis has looked good. And how about O'Neill Cruz cracking one yesterday?
Yeah, the Cruz home run was pretty impressive. That was a monster blast, as we know he can hit. The Henry Davis thing is a little bit of a mystery to me because now I've watched him catch a couple of times.
Looks good.
And it doesn't look good. He doesn't look bad. He just looks like a catcher back there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why the reluctance of a lot of people all around baseball, not just Pirate people. There was a lot of people that, scouts and stuff that I talked to said, he's going to have to find another position. I don't understand that. I've watched him catch now. He just looks like a catcher back there. He looks like a catcher back there. He's got a great arm. And also every time I've seen him catch, he's hit home runs, which is nice because it would be nice to have a catcher that contributes on offense, like a Russell Martin type guy.
Yeah.
And, he could be that.
Well, today is...
I don't know. Maybe there's something, maybe he has some flaw catching that, it's going to take a while to show up. But right now, I don't see it. He just looks like a catcher to me.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it is Francisco Cervelli's birthday today, so,
Oh, good. Well, yeah, he was probably our last, catcher that we had to where, he was going to be involved in knocking in runs and that sort of thing. And I miss him. He was quite a character. He was a lot of fun to be around and watch.
The last impressive catcher.
Well, on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some guys win Gold Gloves back there, but it's been they're in the lineup because their defensive abilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've gone that way we've chosen to go that way, but I would like the catcher, to be a little more of a two-way player, me personally.
Yeah, well, it's certainly understandable, especially since the pitchers aren't contributing their bats anymore, and we know how dangerous that was.
Yeah. You took those big bats out of the lineup. It makes it even worse.
Hey, Bob, thanks for the visit this morning. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
There's Bob Walk of the Pittsburgh Pirates with us this morning. It's Indiana in the Morning on WCC.